What's going on, guys? My name is Lieben, and today in this video I am going to be trying to remove the torque converter on this gray 350Z. Then after that I'm going to try to take off the flywheel, and lastly I'm going to try removing the rear main seal gasket and replacing those. In the last video you guys saw that I took off the transmission. The new transmission that I got, well, it's not really new, it's a used one, but it's new to me. That transmission came with a torque converter, and both the transmission and the torque converter have less miles, so I'm going to be replacing both of them. So I'm going to be taking this one off, and like I said, while I'm at it, I'll already be doing most of the work. It looked like there was some transmission fluid leaking in between the engine and the transmission, so I thought, why not go ahead and replace the rear main seal right now that I was doing both things. So I'll take this off, then the flywheel, and then the rear main gasket, or the rear main seal. I'll show you guys how I do it, and basically all the headaches that come along with doing it. And if you guys saw the last video when I was removing the transmission, you guys saw that I removed a little bracket that goes back here in this area. It's this bracket right here. So that is like the little cover that actually lets you get to the holes that hold onto the transmission, and you can kind of see where they're at. Where you can see the solder points right here, that will be where one of the bolts are at. And then you have another one right over here. In total there are 4 bolts that are holding on the torque converter onto the engine. So basically you go to the other side, you go right here, and there's a bolt right here where you can turn the crankshaft, and then that is how you will align the bolts of the torque converter with this little hole right here. And then that is how you'll be able to remove each bolt. You just loosen one off and then turn it so you can reach the next one, and then you take that one off, and then that's pretty much how you go until you remove all 4 of them. Okay, and the bolt that actually turns the whole crankshaft is a 19mm. I went ahead and just added it to a long extension bar and just was rotating it, and I was able to get the flywheel. If you can see now, those 2 dots is in line with the opening right here, and you guys probably won't be able to see because of the angle, but I can barely see the bolt right there. And if you guys are wondering why I haven't taken this brace off, or this bracket, I explained it in my last video, and it's basically because one of the bolts over here, that one right there, is actually stripped, and I haven't been able to take it off, so it kind of made removing the transmission a little more complicated, but I was able to do it. So I'm gonna try to see if I can remove all these bolts with the bracket, or with this bracket on. Hopefully I can do it, and if not, then I will continue trying to see how to remove that bolt. But yeah, I'll see if I can do it without having to take it off. I was not able to get to those bolts without removing this bracket. So what I ended up doing, because I couldn't take it all the way off, I just took all of the other ones off. So now it's hanging just on that one bolt. But that helped, because at least now I can get my finger in through here, and then with a knuckle right there, the 14mm socket, and then an extension that goes right here to the pan, I was actually able to get this loose. Honestly, this space right here, I didn't think anything would fit, but between taking off the transmission and now here with the torque converter, it has been a lifesaver. I have been taking this whole thing apart with a bunch of extensions all the way down here. So I guess if you guys aren't able to take this off either, there still is a way to be able to reach that bolt. Obviously it will be a little bit more complicated, but yeah, like I said, right now if I can just loosen the rest of this by hand, and as you guys can see, it is turning. Okay, so I have just loosened the last bolt, which is down here right now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is put this bar back up so I can get better, more underneath the car, and I can hold it in place while I'm loosening it, because I don't want to loosen the bolt and then just have this whole thing fall off. If it's not, I don't know how well it is grabbed onto there, if it's just the bolt that's literally holding it on. If it's just the bolt, it's going to be a bit challenging putting the new one on. I'm just seeing that right now. Hopefully it's actually like seated onto the flywheel. I'm not sure. I guess I won't know until I take it off. But yeah, let me go ahead and put this brace back up so I can get underneath the car. Okay guys, and here we have the torque converter on the ground. Now that thing was actually pretty heavy. I was kind of scared that when I was going to pull it off it was just going to fall on my face. So I was slowly wiggling it out until it finally kind of popped up. So it seems like it's just sitting on this lip. So that's kind of good. I mean, I'm not gonna put all my confidence just on it sitting on that lip. I'm gonna have to be careful when I go ahead and put the bolts back on with the other torque converter. But here you can see where the bolts were at. There's one right there, another one right there, then we have one up top there, and then the fourth one right there. And they're actually kind of stubby bolts. They're not really that big at all. The other one fell when I was loosening the other one. It's somewhere down here. Gotta find that. But now, whoever was working on this car, or whoever the previous owner of this car, might have done something inside here as well. Or I don't know if they come labeled like that. I doubt it from factory. But it seems like they're numbered. And I noticed that with these ones too right here. It showed that they kind of were numbered. But anyways, yeah, it shows that also like a line right here for a mark. I was watching a video and then I did see that when I put the flywheel, well, first of all, when I take it off, they recommend taking it off in a star pattern, kind of like when you're putting on a wheel. And then when I put it back on too, go ahead and put it back in a star pattern as well. It does have a little guide right there to make sure we put the flywheel back on the same spot. There's this marking right here. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, I'll go ahead and take this off as well. It does seem to have some oil in the back, so I'm guessing that seal does need to be replaced. But honestly, the main thing that I was kind of worried about not being able to do, I just did, which was get the bolt from back there. So this should honestly be pretty easy. They're all here in the open. Okay guys, so I tried using a ratchet to be able to take it off, but all of this was spinning, so I'm gonna go ahead and use a impact wrench. I wouldn't recommend this. I'm gonna do this at my own risk, but I'm pretty sure there's a proper way of being able to hold this down and being able to loosen it. Okay, that was kind of sketchy, but I was finally able to take them all off. It was easier with this, but I was kind of scared of damaging the bolts. But now you guys can see they're all loose, so I can go ahead and just finish taking them off by hand and then take off the flex plate. Alright guys, so just as I suspected, it is leaking oil from the rear main seal, but not only that, it seems whoever put the flywheel back on did not put it right. As you can see, there's some, actually, I hope that is not bad. It seems that the flywheel was actually rubbing up against the engine right here and the rear main seal. It doesn't look that deep, but it is scratched up. I might actually have to end up replacing the flywheel because That's actually pretty bad. I was wondering when I was looking at the other side why it looked kind of burnt right there. And now looking at it better, that seems pretty bad, honestly. I don't know if I want to put that back on. So and it seems like it has some dents on it too. I don't know what the heck they were doing before to this car that it's all damaged like that. But I will go ahead and buy another one, even if it's just a used one, just one that doesn't look that horrible. And like I said, hopefully that, well, this is part of the rear main seal, so half of that will be replaced, but it's still going to have some damage on the bottom side. I hope it still does a good seal when I put the new one on and it doesn't leak again. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm pretty sure that's not normal wear or tear. I've never taken apart a transmission, so I don't know what it's supposed to look like connected to here, but I'm pretty sure that's not normal. But yeah, so now I guess I'll go ahead and continue by taking off the rear main seal. Okay, so it's been about a week later, and I went ahead and did get a new Flexplate flywheel. Some people call it one thing, and others call it something else. But anyways, I went ahead and purchased it, and I'll say it does look better than the one that was on the car that's all messed up. So first of all, it doesn't have that burnt patch. You can see this one looks pretty nice. And then if we flip it around, it also looks pretty good here on this side too. Whereas this one, you can see the damage pretty good on this side here. So yeah, I'll be installing this newer, or I guess I don't know if it's newer. It came out of a same 2003, so I guess it's not newer, but this better condition flex plate, I'll be putting that one instead of this messed up one. And then I also got the rear main seal. So now that I have everything, I can go ahead and take off the one that's in the car, the rear main seal, clean it up, and then put that one, and then basically just go ahead and reassemble everything back together.
Windows D. Okay, let's do it. We were talking about how did you get that? Oh, it's gone? When they announced that they were going to put Google Fiber in Los
As you guys just saw, I just removed three 10mm bolts. They were in this position right here. That's all that's holding it down onto the engine. Now I'm just going to have to go ahead and pry it off because I'm pretty sure it has some gasket maker around the edges right here. I can see there's some right there, so it might be stuck on there pretty good. And because this is holding in oil, or at least that's what it's supposed to be, I'm pretty sure I'm about to be drenched with oil because I am laying down underneath the car and there isn't really anywhere I can move to. I'll have the pan close by. Hopefully I can have it over me so it doesn't completely get me drenched. But you guys will go ahead and see the amount of oil that falls down right now. And there we have it, guys. So luckily, all you see right there, that was all that leaked out. So that was literally nothing. It's a good thing because I didn't want to get drenched. But here we have the old rear main seal. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is just go ahead and clean where the other gasket here on the back was at. This one right here. You guys can see, I think it was cracking off already. And then just take off some of this excess gasket right here, and then just basically clean it down with some brake cleaner. Okay, so I've gone ahead and now cleaned all around up there as well as this surface down here. So now I will go ahead and get the other rear main seal, put some RTV or gasket maker on it too to have a better seal, and then put it back on here. Okay, and here I have the new rear main seal. It's right there, and then here is a new gasket that goes right here, and then this one right here is the one that goes on the bottom right there. And there are two things that you should notice. The first thing is that there is a specific way that this gasket right here goes. If you try to put it on the other side, this circle on top right here will not align. So you have to make sure that it goes on the correct way. And the same thing goes with this one right here that goes on the bottom. If you can see right here, there's a little like nub right there, and that has to go in the direction where this where the actual rear main seal has the opening right here, and it won't be able to go the other way or else it'll be sticking out. So what I'm gonna do is, you can see that the rear main seal has like some openings right here. I'm gonna go ahead and seal that with some gasket maker, and then I'll go ahead and put this seal on top of it to make sure that it is stuck on there. And the same thing with this bottom one. I'll go ahead and put some gasket sealer across the bottom right here just to make sure that no oil leaks out of it. Okay, and I'm not sure if that's too much or what, but that's what I'm gonna go ahead and start with. So now I'll go back onto the car and try actually fitting this in between. Okay, and this might be overkill, but I've gone ahead and put some gasket maker on this end of this gasket as well. I just want to make sure that this has the best possible seal ever, and also it just helps keep it stuck because I'm gonna go ahead and put this on before I put the actual gasket or the rear main seal. And then after that gasket has been put on, I put some gasket maker along this side right here to make more of a seal, because the gasket that goes underneath doesn't actually go right here on the side. It only goes right there, and I'll go ahead and show you once I put it on. Alright, and now it's time for the main event.
One eternity later.
Okay, and I've gone ahead and put this bolt up here just to kind of hold it in place. It's actually proving to be kind of difficult because the bottom gasket actually wants to come out. As you can see, I've made already a mess with the gasket, but I guess now there's no point in stopping. I'll continue trying to push the seal in. Okay guys, so my camera shut off. Meanwhile, I was putting the rear main seal on, which honestly might have been a good thing. I'll be honest with you guys, I do not like how I went ahead and put the seal on. The manual says that to do this job properly, you have to go ahead and take out the engine, or drop off the pan, this bottom section of the engine, to be able to do it correctly. Obviously, I didn't want to go ahead and do the extra work of taking off the engine. That might come back and bite me in the... Hopefully it doesn't. But yeah, basically the rear main seal, the bottom seal right here, or gasket, because it's new, obviously it's thicker. The old one was compressed already because of how many, who knows how many years it's been down there. But basically, once I was trying to put it on, as you guys saw, I started putting on the bolts kind of to hold it down in place. And then I was squeezing, I was basically with like a flathead compressing the gasket in like that. And then I would be tapping it so that it would slowly be going in. I'm not sure if the last clip showed it or not, but so I would start like, let's say on this side, compressing it in to make sure that the gasket would go inside. Then I would tap it with the mallet and then slowly like that move my way down and keep on tucking and then hitting it so the seal would slowly be sitting down until I go all the way to that side, and eventually it all was sitting down, was seated in the correct position. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that wasn't the right way of doing it. That's the way I did it. Hopefully that works and nothing leaks anymore. I went ahead and then put some gasket sealer around right there. I honestly don't know if that would make a difference. That's probably more just to make myself feel better, in case it does leak, but it might not actually work anything at all. I would recommend using the service manual and actually doing it the proper way. This is how I'm doing it based on how I was able to do it. And now basically what I'm going to go ahead and do is just wait for the gasket maker, whatever it's called, RTV, to go ahead and dry before I can go ahead and put the flex plate back on. And if anything, if it does start leaking, at least this will be a testament on how not to replace a rear main seal, so you guys know that the way I did it would mess it up. Hopefully it doesn't, but in case it does, I guess it can be an expensive teaching moment.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Okay, and now that I've gone ahead and let the RTV dry, I can go ahead and put the flex plate back on. Now, if you guys can see, there's like a little like guide right here, and here on the flex plate there's also a guide, a hole where that guide goes through. So you just have to make sure and align it correctly, or else basically what happened with whoever did this job recently would happen again, and you'll start wearing down some of the edges of the engine. So you just have to make sure it's on there seated and not crooked. And so you're aware, it does go in pressurized, so it will take some elbow grease to be able to actually force it on. And also see some penetrating oil would also help. That's how I was able to take it off initially. I sprayed it down with penetrating oil and then it slid off and on back on. Just after that, I would recommend cleaning it up. Alright, so I was able to get it to seat back all the way in the back, and now I just have to go ahead and put the bolts back on. So when you go ahead and tighten these, you want to go ahead and do it in a cross pattern so that this actually sits down evenly and it's not crooked. And then after you've crossed them, you've bolted them in a cross pattern, then the last thing you do is you go back around in a circle. Alright, I've gone ahead and tightened it down now, but because I don't want the same thing that happened to this flex plate to happen to the other one, I'm going to go ahead and turn the crankshaft and basically just see if I see any flaking or anything like that on here. Okay, so I've given it quite a few turns. I haven't heard any like metal on metal scraping, and I haven't seen any flakes come off. Like, let's say because I have some gasket right here, I would have felt that at least I would have seen some rubbing or flaking of the gasket because it's a lot less stronger than the metal. But I haven't seen any of that, so hopefully that means this is correctly aligned, or obviously if it's not, it's gonna continue eating away, and that's gonna make a really horrible mess. So hopefully it is aligned correctly now. I don't know of any other way, I guess, of double checking it. I've seen right here, there looks to be quite a bit of space in between on both sides. And I mean, besides that, the only other thing I could think of would be turning the flywheel to make sure there's enough clearance. But now that that's set, I'm going to go ahead and move the flywheel a little bit more so that this bolt that holds on to the torque converter is actually in the dead center, so I can reach it from the back once I put the torque converter back on. I was gonna go ahead and get the torque converter and bolt it onto the flywheel before putting on the transmission, but actually I was seeing some videos and they all recommend to actually install the torque converter to the transmission first and then all together install the transmission to the engine. From what I understand, that allows less chance of the splines that are inside of the torque converter to be damaged, because if I install this onto the flex plate, then I have to be aiming the center of the transmission. I have to make sure those splines fit perfectly into that, and most of the time they don't, and that's when damages occur. So they say to go ahead and install that when it's outside so you can move it around, make sure it sits down perfectly, and then go ahead and install the transmission. So I'll go ahead and do that. The first thing is to go ahead and fill it with some oil. If you can see the old one, it's dark, but that one actually has some transmission oil in it. I'm gonna go ahead and put maybe about like a quart of oil in there. And actually it does have a little bit, but I'll just go ahead and add some more. And what that does basically just minimizes the chances of there being any damage by not having proper lubrication. Now that I fit about like a quarter of transmission fluid inside the torque converter, I went ahead and cleaned the outside right here, and now I'm just gonna go ahead and lubricate this neck right here with some automatic transmission fluid, because that's the part that goes inside of the transmission. And I saw that it doesn't have to be a lot, it can just be a nice little thin layer. And you don't want to use grease on here, because apparently that doesn't allow there to be a good like seal with this, and then the seal of the transmission. And then I'll also go ahead and put some oil right here on this seal as well, because that is what makes contact with the neck of the torque converter. And then now the torque converter should be good to go on the transmission. I also have to go ahead and put all of the other things that came with the old transmission onto this one. And there we have it, guys. I went ahead and installed everything that was on here onto the new one, which is basically just this bar and the cross member. But yeah, now that I have all of this assembled, I just have to go ahead and take this one off and put the new transmission back on. But yeah, that's gonna be all for today, guys, so I'll go ahead and see you guys in the next one.